How you doing, everybody? Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O. Welcome to the new version of the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, March 1st, March 1st, 2021. We are notified that we are going live on Facebook, on my page, on Stables Media page, and also on Stables Media YouTube page. We are powered by Stables Media. We're sponsored by Viget. Download the Viget app, use the MTMAR promo code. And here we are under a new, I wouldn't say new format. The show is going to be the same, but we're just trying a few things here. So please feel free to make comments to us as we go kind of a new way of doing things here a little bit. So we'll see if we get this going here. There we are. So Vasu, Casey, and Charlie here, March 1st, 2021. How are you guys? How was your weekend?
Good. Just
great weekend.
Watching a lot of hoops, and it feels like some teams were starting to separate pretenders from contenders. And I got to tell you, Charlie, this is going to be the hardest damn bracket anybody listening to this broadcast has ever filled out, because there is no great team. I'm sorry, there just is not one great team this year. Every year you can pick one team at least through your Final Four. Good luck with that this year. Maybe Gonzaga, but they haven't played anybody, so it's been fun.
I know, and what did we talk about? We talked about what's going to happen to Baylor. Will they have rust? The answer is yes, they will be rusty. Break out the WD-40. They need it immediately.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's going to be a lot of interesting things. One game to mention, the Pac-12 basketball. Washington State had COVID issues today, so that game that was scheduled at noon that I had Washington State on was going to be my best win. My house mortgage was going on that game, so now it's canceled. So now I can't brag that I had the right side on that. So we'll see where we go. But it's a new week and a new start. Closed out last night 3-0 on the NBA. So we had a good night in the NBA, and then even a live bet on the Charlotte Hornets that came through. And now they're going to go to Portland, who is undermanned. That's one of the NBA games tonight. But let's start out with the NBA a little bit. Casey, the games yesterday of note, the Bucks came back and won. They've had their struggles this year, but they came back and beat the Clippers 105-100. Boston Celtics, I'm not sold on the Celtics yet. They get a 1-point win over Washington. Washington, by all accounts, should have won that game. The Wizards, for February 14th, they were the best team in the NBA, 7-1 since that 2-week period. And then they get that loss. They had a 7-point lead late. We've seen a lot of that this year. And how about the New York Knicks? 500 now. The 109-90 win at Detroit. Memphis just routed Houston. Houston might be worse than Detroit right now. I don't know what to make of that. And then everybody thought that no Anthony Davis. This is the demise of the Lakers because LeBron's playing too much and there's too many minutes. Not so fast, everybody. As Lee Corso says, not so fast. One game does not make a season. I get it, but the demise of the Lakers is a slight exaggeration, Casey, as we get into the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really that watchable. I tuned out in the fourth quarter, especially once they started sitting some of the starters. But, I mean, 41 points in the first quarter. Clearly, LeBron recognized they were the only game in town on ESPN, and the whole nation was going to be watching as they come off that 4-game losing streak. I expected a little more out of the Warriors, who now are 7-10 as far as their away record. And the Lakers, I mean, what can you make of them? They're very Jekyll and Hyde. It seems like anytime we talked about college basketball, anytime you try and pick the best team in the NBA, that's difficult to do because it seems like each of them have their faults. Now, they did get Schroeder back, so that certainly helps. And when they get Anthony Davis back, it's a different animal. But, Charlie, this is kind of an LA story because we contrast that with the Clippers' really poor play at the end of the game. Their two big superstars, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, not really coming through for them. They missed shot after shot. They had wide open looks and really a chance to seal it against Milwaukee. And from what I was looking on in the Twitterverse and on Facebook and my gambling groups, that's a game that burned a lot of people. I think a lot of people, when they saw that line open at +2.5, jumped on the Clippers, but Milwaukee ends up backdoor in the cover. So Lakers with an easy cover and the Clippers struggling a little bit. Now, it's hard to say a team struggling at 24-12, but again, finding the clear-cut best team in the NBA is going to be a chore as we continue into the second half.
Yeah, and Casey, it's the NBA. We always want to look at home court advantage and getting the best seedings and all those kind of things, but it's the NBA. And the biggest thing you want to do is you want to put yourself in a good spot for the playoffs. They don't care about power rankings. They don't care about who's number one right now. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the All-Star break yet. They're more concerned right now about who's going to get the best players available at the trade deadline. They're more concerned about that right now. Each team that's got holes, who's going to be available and who can add to their team at the trade deadline. And then who can make that best run when it comes of time to make that run for the best seeding come the playoffs. That's what they're concerned about. And don't forget, the season doesn't end this year until in early May. We're not talking about early April now. We're talking about early May. So we got a long run yet. So everybody who's, got their pantyhose in a knot, can I still say that? I guess I can still say that. I don't know.
You already did, so that's all right. You already did.
So, don't get all uptight. We've got half a season to go yet. So wherever they are now is not where they're going to be come May.
Vasu, we also did not mention those hottest team in the month of February, Phoenix Suns, who blew out the Timberwolves in Minnesota. You got to love the way this team is playing. Now that Devin Booker's an all-star, as he should be, he looked very good again. 43 points to lead Phoenix. I think that Chris Paul signing is not getting enough run, and it will by the time we get all the dust settled. But Phoenix hasn't been in this kind of position in literally 13 NBA seasons as far as sitting there with a 22-11 record, looking at a top 4 seed in the NBA if the playoffs were to start today. I love the development of DeAndre Ayton. I've talked time and time again about how this core group really loves playing for their coach. And you can't say that about half the teams in the association. You can just tell a lot of them are doing it for the paycheck. But I really think in the second half, this is going to be a fun team to watch. And anybody, you talk about the demise of the Lakers, people who said Chris Paul was getting old and couldn't still do it, you're wrong. The guy has still got many good years left. And he is such a leader. I really love the way that they're playing basketball right now.
Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O here on the Make the Money and Run podcast powered by Stables Media, sponsored by Viget. You'll see the new format that we have here thanks to StreamYard. We've decided to elevate our game a little bit. This is like hopefully some of the NBA teams and some of the college teams are doing. We're elevating. So we'll have all the lines at the bottom here for you so we don't have to go through it. Some of those interesting lines tonight: Dallas 6 at Orlando. 76ers are 4.5 versus Indiana. That actually has come down. Utah 7 over New Orleans. That's interesting to me, Charlie, because Utah had this game against Miami, who, by the way, is red hot in the East, even with all the injuries they had. Miami got a 10-point victory last night over the Atlanta Hawks without Jimmy Butler, and he's going to be back probably in the next game or two. But how about those Miami Heat, the Eastern defending champions right now, coming into the series? They beat Utah on Friday night. They come back. They were tied with about 3 minutes to go last night and go on a 10-0 run to cover for Vasu. But outside of that, they are rolling through. They're rolling through the scenario here of making themselves a name out of the 10th spot right now. So 2 wins from Friday. So they're 17-17. They're at 500. They're right near the 6th spot based on how the Eastern Conference is. So what do you take on Miami? And they can only get better, in my opinion, from the injuries they've had.
Well, we were a little concerned about how they came out of the chute. We're kind of going, who is this team? This is not who we saw in the bubble. But when you look back at how their season started out, they were missing a lot of players early on. They had health and safety issues. They had players injured, everything else. And now the gang is getting back together. And now as the team is coming together, they're starting to play like we expected them to play. And I think that's what's happening. I mean, even though Jimmy Butler was not, Jimmy Butler's not the youngest guy on the team. So we're going to see him play 3 games, 4 games together, and then he's going to take a rest. So that's going to be the scenario as we go through the season. But I think we're seeing the true Miami Heat come to the forefront. And as that happens, they're going to continue this way, and they're going to become a force in the East. Are they going to win the East? No. Where will they finish? I think probably 4th, and then they'll be a real factor in the playoffs.
The Toronto Raptors beat the Houston Rockets 122-111 on Friday night, and then they've had kind of an up and down season. They were postponed yesterday. Some of the COVID issues coming back, Casey. But I'm not sure what to make of Toronto. Houston might be worse than Detroit based on the way they're playing last week. They released DeMarcus Cousins. John Wall hasn't fit in as well as they thought they were going to fit in. And Houston's just a mess right now. And I feel bad for Steven Silas because he's a really good coach, but he just doesn't have the players. And that just goes to show that you could be a good coach with bad players and still be looked upon badly. But that's the team that I'm kind of surprised is doing as bad as they are right now. But some of the other teams are doing it. How about San Antonio? They get a victory over New Orleans the other night as a home dog. They've got, I think they're on our list here. They're playing tonight. They've got the Brooklyn Nets tonight. They're Brooklyn's -5 at San Antonio tonight. I'm not so sure I would take Brooklyn after the way they played against Dallas, Casey.
Yeah, and again, these totals are just, asinine. You've got 234.5 as the total in that Brooklyn Spurs game tonight. Then you look at Utah and New Orleans up at 236. Defensive fans are certainly, this is not your year. Let's just put it that way. Let me just bounce around with some of the teams that you mentioned there, Vasu. I'm looking at the next 7 games, basically, because we've got an all-star break coming up this weekend. But we start with the Miami Heat. They're in pretty good shape. They'll be taking on the Hawks tomorrow night at home. Then they go at New Orleans, bit of a tough one, head to the all-star break, and a pretty cushy schedule to start the second half. Home against Orlando, at Chicago, at Orlando, home against the Cavs, and then at Memphis. So those are some of the lower-rung teams, and that's certainly what you want to look at as the defending Eastern Conference champions try and get their mojo back at 17-17 overall. The Toronto Raptors, an enigma, as you mentioned. I agree. I've watched them. I've bet and won on them, but I've also seen them really kind of go in the tank a few times. They've got a nice 7-game stretch as well. Detroit, Boston, Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago, and Detroit again. You want to see the Bulls and the Pistons on your schedule is kind of what I'm angling at here if you're an Eastern Conference team looking to rise up. And then for the Houston Rockets, yuck. It's just a mess. They've been a delight if you've been betting against them, money line or point spread. They've got Cleveland, then Brooklyn, at the Kings, and then it gets brutal post All-Star break. They got to play Utah, Boston, Golden State, a bunch of teams that are contenders. So I wouldn't expect much more out of the much maligned city of Houston. And by the way, this is nothing to do with what we're talking about, but congratulations on your departure from Houston, Mr. J.J. Watt. I wish you nothing but the best with the Arizona Cardinals and the Houston Texans. If I'm looking at NFL futures, under. That franchise stinks, and I hope Deshaun Watson gets out of there too. I know I'm starting to ramble. I apologize.
We'll hit the NFL stuff at the end, but a little bit more NBA. Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove, Charlie O on the Make the Money and Run podcast for March 1st, powered by Stables Media, sponsored by Bigot. By the way, I finished third in that handicappers contest on Bigot, so get on Bigot, use the MTMAR promo code. Nothing like a 3-0 night when you're chasing money or chasing coins in this case, like we've all been known to do on these wagering weeks. When the weekends, boy, I need those 3 wins right now just to get back to even. Sure enough, I got back to even and ended up in third place. So sorry for the 4 below me, but good luck to the other 3 as the contest come in. But you can get on the betting league tab and get on the MTMAR tab, get on the King Cappers contest tabs, get on any of the leagues that you want. You can even start your own league, and anybody that makes wagers on here will be part of your league and part of your standing. So check it out. I know Casey's girlfriend's doing well on that. And Charlie, I haven't seen you on there yet very much, but hopefully we'll get you going here in the next few weeks. All right, just a couple more NBA notes. The Lakers, as we talked about, the Lakers had a big win against Portland Friday night. Their defense came out to play. Last night they turned on the defense against the Warriors, who had given up a lot of points, but they were really good field goal shooting wise defensively. But the Lakers just came out to a 41-21 start in that first quarter. LeBron James, he didn't play very much last night. Obviously, they were up by 30 at some point, so it didn't really matter. But you look at the Clippers, you don't know what to make of the Clippers. They get a big win against Utah. They lose a couple of games against Memphis, and then yesterday they had a lead against Milwaukee. The Lakers are there and tied for second place. Phoenix, Casey mentioned. Portland has got a big game against Charlotte. By the way, Charlotte scored a bunch of points, and they're 7.5-point underdogs. Portland, they are on my picks later because they're fighting out for the 7th and 6th spots as well. For the Charlotte Hornets, but then still you've got 5 teams that are 500 or better in the East. So maybe it's just the fact that they're playing bad teams. But the Detroit Pistons, Cleveland Cavaliers, Houston Rockets, and Minnesota Timberwolves are looking for the next points here. So Charlie, what do you make? Let's talk about the Lakers a little bit because they are kind of a lightning rod in terms of conversation because of the Anthony Davis deal. So I'll let you take it away with that. But the way they played defense the last 2 days, which is what I expected them to do coming out at the beginning of the year.
Well, everybody has a panic with the Lakers when they don't win every game. And it's the NBA. You don't win every game. Nobody's going to go 72-0. We knew that from the beginning. And it's a league full of professionals. So you're going to have a situation where you're going to lose some games. You've got an older team. You've got a LeBron that you can't expect to play 48 minutes every night. And their biggest concern is being ready for the playoffs. Now, of course, they don't want to fall too low in the West because they don't want to be put in a disadvantaged situation. But you've got Davis who's resting, and they want him healthy for the playoffs. So they're going to put him in the best position they can. They had Schroeder that was out. So that's going to hurt them at that point. And we know they're not very deep. Well, last night you got Schroeder back. He played well. LeBron was obviously rested and ready to go. And you got to see what they can do when they're rested and ready to go. And I still think they're going to add to their roster before the trade deadline. The Lakers are going to be just fine. If you're a Lakers fan, don't panic. They've got money. They want to win. They're going to do everything they need to do to win. And if you're not a Lakers fan and you're reveling in the fact that they're not going well, do not rest easy. Be nervous. Be very, very nervous because they're going to be a factor in the playoffs. And don't be surprised at all when they're in the NBA Finals.
All right, some NBA games tonight to go at. I don't have the schedule. Well, we do have the schedule in front of us now with the new deal here. Let me find it again. So, any games of interest, non-betting wise tonight? I'm kind of fired. I'm kind of interested to see how Dallas plays at Orlando. Orlando sometimes has a way of not showing themselves, and then they come out with Vucevic, the All-Star. That's one that interests me. The 76ers, I don't know what to make of them. Joel Embiid's an MVP candidate. They play good defense. Doc Rivers is a great coach. Ben Simmons has been in and out the last 4 or 5 games. They're only a 4.5-point favorite over Indiana. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they lost to Cleveland, Casey, on Saturday. Of all teams to lose to, you're a home favorite against Cleveland, and Cleveland comes in and beats you. And they're playing an Indiana team. They're only 4.5 points tonight on Indiana. After Indiana lost to Boston in a game they should have won, they were up 18 to start. And then a game against the Knicks. The Knicks, yeah, they're playing well, and I know they're right up there in terms of standings with the Knicks. But Casey, this is the Indiana Pacers, and this is the Philadelphia 76ers. I think they're still two of the best teams in the East, but you can't be Indiana losing to the Knicks and to the Celtics who aren't playing well coming into the middle part of the season.
It's an interesting line. It's a bit befuddling because the Sixers beat them by 10 points, the only other matchup they had this year. And also for the Pacers, Karis LeVert is out, TJ Warren's out, and Malcolm Brogdon's out. So, I mean, that's some offense that you can't put away. Last 10, Philly averaged 5-5. Pacers are 3-7. So this line is a bit confusing. I don't know if I was going to play money line. I think I'd look at the Sixers, especially with Embiid coming off 42 in the loss against Cleveland. So I think that's a watchable game. It's definitely one that I would take a look at. I have to keep an eye on the Nets and Spurs just because that I mentioned insane over under 234 points. I want to see if any defense will be played at all. You've got to think Greg Popovich knows how to scheme up some defense. And the Nets are very confusing because you really have to check their lineups, folks, if you're betting on them. Every night somebody different is out. And of course, they announced last week that Kevin Durant will not return until we get after the All-Star break. Probably good as far as load management and making sure that he's 100%. And if anything, it's making the other teammates mesh. I've been also very impressed. I think all three of us have by the play of Joe Harris there. He's done a really good job in his role for Brooklyn. And then Jazz and Pelicans. I mean, the best team in the NBA against the most exciting player, arguably, with Zion Williamson. Getting 7 points at home. Maybe they're feeling feisty as a live dog tonight. But New Orleans, again, Charlie, they played pretty inconsistent. It's not the tastiest, as we always use that word, matchup tonight. The one game I'm going to be betting on, and if we started this show an hour and a half earlier, I would have been 1.5 points better, will be the Blazers and Hornets. And I'll save that pick because it sounds like Vasu and I are going to be going head-to-head a little bit later.
Yeah. All right. Let's move. Go ahead, Kate. Go ahead, Charlie. I'm sorry.
You know, a couple of games that I'm watching tonight that I'm interested in is I am going to be interested in watching. I'm not sure that I'm an investor in these games, but I am going to be interested in watching the Nuggets and the Bulls because the Nuggets are a team that needs to get healthy. And I think they're going in against a team in the Bulls that we've been very surprised about. Now, we keep calling them Zach LaVine and who, because we don't really know much about the rest of the team except that they're playing really well. Billy Donovan's got a team that we don't know anything about that's playing some pretty good basketball, and we know that the Nuggets need to get healthy because they're playing terrible. So that'll be an interesting game to see how they do on the road. As a matter of fact, what are they? Nuggets are 4.5-point favorites in that game. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see how they do going into Chicago to do that. And then the other game that I'm interested to watch is that Jazz Pelicans game, because the Jazz coming off that loss, I want to see how they do against a team like the Pelicans, who are up and comers. Now they should win going away. But as soon as you say the word should, and you're talking about a team that you're wagering on, all of a sudden you're in a heap of trouble. So I want to see how they do in that situation.
Let's switch over to college basketball now. Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O. Keep an eye on the ticker. We're powered by Stables Media. You can check us out on Facebook and on YouTube as well, Facebook Live. Thanks to everybody on Facebook right now. David Griffith, Christine watching. We got comments. Yeah, comments coming on. StreamYard is brand new here for us, everybody, so we're trying to manipulate through this as well. But let us know what you think. If you like the new format, you like the new background, you like us still, for that matter, let us know either way, and we'll just go from there. So let's hit college basketball a little bit. An interesting college basketball weekend this past weekend. The Big Ten, clearly the Big Ten and the Big 12 are the two best conferences right now in the country. The Big Ten, Purdue had a big win over Penn State the other night. I still think they have to do. The only Big Ten game of the night is Rutgers -8, 140.5 at Nebraska. Nebraska got a win over the weekend, shocking. They beat, I forgot who they beat. I think they beat Minnesota on Saturday, who was the hot story going into the year. Michigan still rolling, 73-57 over Indiana on Saturday. And Illinois, even without Sumu, he's their best player, 20-point scorer. But they went into Wisconsin, who did not shoot the ball well. One of my favorite games on Saturday to play was Illinois +5 against Wisconsin. And they nearly blew the lead, but they ended up winning by 5. They were up by 20 at some point. And then Iowa got a big win at Ohio State. What do we make of Ohio State? And then Michigan State, it's March 1st. Time for Michigan State to start turning around, Casey, here with Tom Izzo. And Charlie, I'll go to Charlie here on the Big Ten. That's his wheelhouse right here. But Maryland with a big win over Michigan State yesterday afternoon, kind of throws the Big Ten into a monkey wrench. I don't know if it's just one game or what do we make of the Big Ten now coming into the first week of March, Charlie?
Michigan State's in trouble. I mean, the committee and bracketologists keep trying to put Michigan State in, and Michigan State keeps saying, "Nah, we don't want to go." I mean, it's terrible. And I don't know how you can make a case to put them in at this point. I mean, you can talk about, well, they had a quad loss this and a quad one loss this. No, you cannot put Michigan State in. I'm sorry. You just cannot. Not at this point. And, I lived in East Lansing. I used to go to high school games and watch Magic Johnson play. I mean, I like the Spartans. I've got friends who live there who live and die with the Spartans. They cannot go to the tournament. They just cannot. And Ohio State, what in the world is going on there? I mean, let's have a number 2 seed and then wind up and make ourselves go to number 3. I mean, that's the craziest thing ever. Illinois gets better. Of course, Michigan, we know where they're at. Iowa all of a sudden decides, hey, you know what? We're getting towards the end here. We better play some basketball. The Big Ten just decided to go topsy-turvy all of a sudden right at the end. And you know what? I love it. That's what makes college basketball so fun.
Well, Casey, what about the Big Ten here? I mean, Michigan State had these 3 big wins last week. I know Indiana not considered to be a huge win anymore the way they played, but still Indiana on the road, home dog wins against Illinois and Ohio State last week. And then they lay an egg at Maryland, and Maryland's okay, but they're not great. And they were a 3-point underdog. I thought that was an easy mark yesterday for Michigan State as a 3-point underdog against Maryland. Where do we see the Big Ten? Do we still think it's the number 1 conference in the country, or is it 1A next to the Big 12?
It's neck and neck. Maybe a reduction in projected teams, though. I mean, that the top 6 are going to get in. Anybody that's a ranking next to them is safe, and that's Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Purdue, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. Maryland's 9-9 in conference, as is Rutgers. They've got a road game at Nebraska tonight. You pointed it on the board. By the way, if you're playing that game tonight, folks, Nebraska, the best 3-point defense in the conference, despite their terrible record. and Rutgers, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the conference. So that 140.5, I might look under that. I don't have it as an official play, but that's one to keep an eye on. Look, the biggest surprise of the weekend is the way that Iowa worked Ohio State. I'm not a big fan of the Hawkeyes, and they just came out and really looked impressive. I mean, Luka Garza, 24 points, 11 boards, and Ohio State now on a 3-game losing streak after being 12-4 in conference. This is not the time of the year. I guess they say you want to get a loss or two out of the way, but they are not playing very good basketball at the moment. Now, that hasn't affected the way that Las Vegas sees the Big Ten. A lot of teams up here as projected favorites. If I look at the picks on the board, future odds to win the whole championship, Michigan getting more respect now at 4.5 to 1 to win the title, followed by Ohio State at 11 to 1. Then you've got Illinois in there at 15 to 1. And if you're looking for a flyer and you believe in Garza and don't believe me, that'll get you 20 to 1 right now. If I lived in Nevada, that might be worth a 10 spot just for the heck of it. But I think the Big Ten right now is right there neck and neck still with the Big 12. And the biggest thing out of the Big 12, and all three of us were watching this game on Saturday, I'm sure, is just the way that Kansas manhandled Baylor in the second half. That team did not have their sea legs. It certainly looked like a team that had played 26 games, that being Baylor, or Kansas, I mean, compared to a team that had only played 19. And as Coach Drew said after the contest, yes, rust is real. Their team did not have their tempo. And I saw a lot of our fellow gamblers get really shellacked in that game because a lot of people were on Baylor. I don't know if that's that number 2 ranking or what, but here's another interesting wrinkle, Vasu, as I throw it back to you. Baylor actually moved up the board this weekend because they're now 2.5 to 1 to win the championship. They moved ahead of Gonzaga as a favorite, who's just shy of 3 to 1. So it's hard to figure out. Las Vegas and sports fans have a little bit different attitude towards who's the best and who's the team that should be the team to beat right now. I think once Baylor gets a few more games in and gets that conference tournament in, if they're able to do so in the Big 12, they'll still probably end up being the number 1 overall seed. But we hated on Kansas a little bit earlier this year, Vasu. I'm very impressed with the way that Coach Self has really got these guys locked in. They're playing good team basketball. They go about 8-9 deep. And I think that this is just a very enjoyable team to watch. So the Big 12 right now is rising. The Big 10, I would say, is steady. I wouldn't sell the stock, but I'm not going to put as much on it as I would have maybe a week ago.
Isaiah watching in on Facebook Live. Love the new look, fellas. Thanks, Isaiah. Appreciate it. I like watching your show when you get a chance. His other comment on the Big Ten, he's pretty good at analyzing this stuff. I've heard his show. Charlie, what's going on with Ohio State? Is there one weakness, which I've been harping on all season, finally getting exposed, and that is they're severely undersized. Guys like Luka Garza, Hunter Dickinson have dominated them in the last couple of games. You can't put E.J. Lindell and Kyle Young and guys that aren't prototypical centers against regular bigs. It just won't work that way. Ohio State doesn't have that big man that you can go toe-to-toe with some of the best bigs in the country. Isaiah, that's a great point, and that's what I think that's what we're getting to from that standpoint. But, yeah, thanks for watching, Isaiah. We appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the Big 12. Casey, the Big 12, you talked about Kansas. Boy, they handled Baylor. I mean, I thought Baylor was going to come out and blow them out by 30, especially after the way that they lost to Texas last week. And then Oklahoma State got the overtime victory against Oklahoma. They're going to play tonight. Against they're going to go back-to-back, the first time that they're going to go back-to-back in like 100 years or something like that. Oklahoma, still a 1.5-point favorite at Oklahoma State, 142.5. You'll see at the bottom screen, 94-90 overtime victory is +5 underdog for Oklahoma State. The Cowboys, Cade Cunningham really took over in that overtime, but they've got a shooter, and I can't remember his name, but they've got a 3-point shooter. I think it's Peavy on that team that just knocked the lights out in that game on Saturday. I'm not sure if you saw a lot of it, but they were one of my top plays on Saturday afternoon watching Oklahoma State. And what's going to happen tonight?
Well, Oklahoma State is a team that's surging, and obviously you've got the projected number 1 pick, Cade Cunningham, having his best performance as a collegiate with 40 points. And I love that this is a back-to-back. This is another game I'm going to have a play on tonight. By the way, folks, if you shop around, I'm always saying shop those lines. There's variants. You go to FanDuel or DraftKings, you can get 2.5 with the Cowboys. Vasu's got the 1.5, which is over at Win. We can split the difference when we make our picks. I'll take it at 2. I haven't said which side I'm on yet, but I think this is a great matchup, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. 2 good coaches, the best player maybe in college basketball going head-to-head. And look, Williams and Anderson had a pretty good game as well. They've got surrounding pieces. So this is going to be a tough matchup. These two teams do not like each other. There's a reason they call it Bedlam, even though I know that's typically saved for football. But there was a lot of hard fouls in that game on Saturday. So I expect full-on effort tonight. I think this is the marquee matchup across the Big 12. And also, Vasu, there's a lot of teams to watch here. The winner of this game becomes a team to keep an eye on. Texas Tech, I feel like, has a surge coming. I love what Hug and the Mountaineers have done at West Virginia. This is the conference you do not want to see on your side of the bracket when you get into the tournament, because I expect they are going to have teams around when we get to the second weekend of this thing. And I mean, a lot of teams left. I'm a big fan of everybody that's going to be eligible for the dance, and I'm projecting the Red Raiders to be in that shuffle. I talked a little bit earlier about how much I like Kansas, and I just feel like overall this conference is surging. If we're looking at future odds as far as, who's a team that maybe you want to look at to try and pick up a couple of bucks, as I said, a lot of respect for Baylor. I'm shocked that they went from 4-1 down to 2.5-1, but then you have to go down the board a little bit to find other teams. Oklahoma's at 25-1, West Virginia 30-1, and those Kansas Jayhawks at 35-1. Now, do I think any of those teams not named Baylor have a legitimate chance to hoist the trophy at the end? Probably not, but I think that this conference is primed for a pretty deep run, and it's going to be a very watchable week. Plus, I hope that there's no COVID issues when they get to that conference tournament, because I really want to see the dust settle. Don't be surprised if a team that's in the 5th or 6th position finds themselves in the final matchup there to win the conference tournament, in my opinion.
No doubt. Big 12, Texas Tech had a really, really good game. Mac McClung, the transfer from Georgetown, had a big game on Saturday morning, West Coast time. I had Texas Tech minus 2.5 in that game against Texas. And at the end, the defense showed up, and they were able to get key shots and make free throws. Let's move over to the ACC real quick here. Florida State blew a 17-point lead against North Carolina. I know it was Roy Williams' 900th win, but boy, you can't blow 17-point leads. And right now, they're a team that's going to be in the tournament is Florida State. UNC got the 78-70 victory. Virginia Tech, if you've got Wake Forest on your board anywhere, people, bet against them, because I don't care what the point spread is. They got 39 points against Clemson, only 46 against Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech is underrated a little bit. Clemson was a 14-point favorite, and they only won by 8 on Saturday. So I just got to think that and then Boston College got an upset victory over Notre Dame, and then the big game in the ACC was Louisville. Going into Duke, Duke was surging a little bit. They had the Syracuse game on Monday, and then they lose or they beat Duke on Saturday, 80-73. Duke and Baylor were my 2 games on Saturday afternoon that I had, both as favorites. Loser on both of them. So I just have to deal with that. But I made it up on Sunday, as I said. So nothing really stands out to me in the ACC, Casey. It's just a matter of Florida State right now. North Carolina still has some work to do. Virginia has struggled a little bit. They've lost 2 in a row. And then they came up with a big victory. They came up with a big victory over the weekend as well. I don't have them on my list, but they're playing tonight. In fact, I have it right here. They're playing tonight against Miami. They're a 15-point favorite versus Miami. And UNC is a 1.5-point favorite, 150.5 at Syracuse. So which UNC team, Casey, and which Virginia team are we going to see tonight?
It's a great question. Virginia is one of those teams that's kind of, not surging. They're falling. They're a sell stock right now as they fall to number 21 in the country. They're still a good team, though. Florida State, I was very disappointed in that loss as well, because, I mean, if you're going to be a tournament tough team and find a way to advance, you've certainly got to be able to keep double-digit leads. And the other thing that kind of frustrates me about this conference, which I didn't watch a whole lot of this weekend, Charlie, is that those damn Duke Blue Devils are now 9-7 in conference. Even though they're 11-9 overall, they're everybody's favorite, America's darling. This is why I call myself the anti-Duke, because I hate that program. But they're trying to find a way to angle their way in. Watch them end up getting 11 conference wins, finding a way to make it to the semifinal of the ACC, and then once again, their stupid streak of making the tournament every year since we were much younger men will continue. And this is part of the fun of it, guys. You know, I say it kind of tongue-in-cheek. I have respect for Coach K. Duke obviously lost their best player. He said, I'm out of here. I'm going to the NBA draft. But I think all in all, the ACC is going to be a conference you maybe expect more out of than you're going to get in the tournament, Charlie. I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not buying the strength of the Atlantic Coast Conference this year as much as I would in years past, where typically I'd automatically have 3-4 teams in my Sweet 16.
Yeah, Casey, they seem to be very down this year. And I think that, you know, with the changeover with the G League and, you know, guys going directly there, I think recruiting's kind of upside down. And I think we're going to see for the next season or two, especially because with the new CBA coming with the NBA, and they're going to stop this. They're going to stop this. You got to be 19 before you go in and all that. That's going out the door, because if they don't, the kids are going to sue and they're going to win. It's going to change the way way recruiting goes. And it's going to take a while for everything to kind of level out recruiting rise. And I think right now, the ACC is the conference that's been hit hardest by recruiting. And I just think their players aren't as good right now as the other conferences. And I think they're weaker right now than the other Big Five. And I just think it's a down year for them. And just to piggyback on what you got to say, yes, Duke is going to make the tournament. Just go to Reno right now, get in your car. It's only an hour and a half. Go put some money on it. They're going to make the tournament. You know they are. They're doing everything they can do to get in themselves, and then the tournament committee will do everything they can do to put them in. So just go put some money down. They're going to make the tournament.
All right, let's wrap up a little college basketball here before we get to spring training. Baseball fever starting today with games starting yesterday. In the Pac-12, nothing really of significance in the Pac-12. Colorado beat UCLA at home. Utah upset USC. USC will still get in the tournament, 71-61. Arizona had a tough game with Washington, and then Oregon and Oregon State both got victories in the Bay Area. I really like Oregon, and I think they're going to make a move in the Pac-12. In the SEC, Casey's Kentucky Wildcats threw up a donut hole against Florida. Florida, I'm not sure what to make of Florida, but I like them. I've always liked them, but I'm not sure what to make of them. Vanderbilt got a win. South Carolina got a win, an upset win. Auburn got a win. Arkansas won. They're pretty good. They beat LSU. They're probably in the tournament. And Alabama, a week and a half ago, Casey, was on the number one line for a while, and then they were laying. I think they were laying like 10 points over the weekend, and they only got a 5-point victory. So, what's your take on the SEC? This is your conference.
Well, there's still a lot of shaking out to do, and Kentucky just blew it. I mean, they played very well in the first half against Florida. I was on that game, not on the podcast, but on that game myself. So that one burned a little bit. And maybe I'm just going with the brand name on the front, because this is clearly Calipari's first worst team that he's had, maybe the whole time that he's been there. There's a lot of shaking out still to be done here in the SEC. I think Alabama suffered a bit of a setback, but Arkansas is surging. I mean, this team's red hot. They've won 6 games in a row. The Razorbacks are not a team I'd want to see on my schedule when I get to the tournament. And I'm a big fan of their head coach, Eric Musselman, who, of course, coached my Sacramento Kings as I come to you here from Northern California, and was unceremoniously fired. Great career rebound to head up to Reno, recruit himself a couple NBA players, and parlay that into a Southeastern Conference job. They're at 11-4, and they're looking very tough. The rest of it is 2 teams that really have fallen off, Vasu, Tennessee and Missouri. We were both high on them. They both had winning records in conference. Now the Volunteers find themselves just at 9-7 in the conference, and Missouri's fallen all the way to 7-7, maybe in danger of missing the tournament. So there's a lot of things to shake out. I think that this might be a year where, unlike years past, you don't see a surprise team make a deep run in Atlanta as they get the tournament going. And it could be Alabama and Arkansas in another rematch. Now, Florida's a team to keep an eye on as well. They looked quality on Saturday, but they were playing Kentucky. And if you're point spread betting in this league, just, again, cool the units. Maybe go half-unit bets, because this is a conference that still has a lot to sort out. You've seen a lot of teams jump up and bite you, and that's happened on both sides of the ball. So I'm enjoying SEC basketball, but I don't really see even a Final Four contender here. And I'm saying that as a guy who loves Alabama athletics, but I wasn't expecting this run as far as the hoops team. Good job on the team extending their coach, though. They obviously believe down there in Tuscaloosa. But I think that this is not the best year for Southeastern Conference basketball.
No doubt about it. All right, a couple more things here to hit, and then we'll hit over to the NFL and Major League Baseball preview. We're going to do previews today for the AL East and the NL East. Villanova seems to still be the class. They did get upset by Butler yesterday. Xavier, can't figure Xavier out. Georgetown gets the win. Connecticut on the rise, 80-62 victory on Saturday. And then, of course, as we said, Villanova losing to Butler yesterday morning, kind of a shock there. Houston continues to rise in the American. And Wichita State, we'll have to figure out if Wichita State can get in or not. And then Memphis got a big victory yesterday as well. And then a lot of talk over the weekend. And I'll let both of you guys take this, because we don't watch a lot of Missouri Valley Conference. But we don't watch a lot of Missouri Valley Conference. Loyola Chicago, 65-58 win. They're number 22 in the country, and everybody is saying that they're in the tournament regardless if they win their conference tournament or not. And then, of course, Gonzaga and the WCC, they're cruising until they get to the conference tournament. I remember when a few years ago, St. Mary's took them out, but they were still into the tournament because they're so much above everybody else in terms of college basketball. So I'll let Casey take that with the Loyola Chicago comment, because that's the team that kind of fascinates me here a little bit.
Yeah, they took over for the Drake, who was the team that couldn't lose against the spread. And look, the Valley will have 2 bids, maybe 3. Missouri State, 12-6 in conference, and even Indiana State, they picked up a win over the weekend. I know they covered somebody on one of my betting groups was really high on the Sycamores. There's this guy that's like an Indiana specialist. I love
Indiana State, right? Exactly.
On Legit Picks, one of the great Facebook groups. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't watched really any Missouri Valley basketball. I've seen Drake play once. They're fine. I don't believe in Gonzaga as a national championship contender, and this might be the year that I'm proven wrong. But the thing that we see year in and year out with any team from a mid-major conference is, yeah, you can beat up on all those teams there, but what have you done against brand name teams? As soon as you run into a team that plays the same level of basketball, typically their recruiting and athleticism wins out. But that's early speculation, and that's about all I have to say about it. I have to keep an eye on the Valley. I haven't watched much of it.
Charlie, what about Gonzaga, though? They've beaten some quality teams in the beginning of the year. They beat Kansas. They beat Auburn. They beat some of the teams that are recognizable names to most average college basketball fans, and yet they're still not getting the respect from one of our co-hosts, but also a lot of people in terms of a national championship run. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think, Vasu, the thing that always hurts Gonzaga is the fact that their conference season is so weak. I mean, there's a reason why they win the WCC every year. I mean, because Santa Clara and Pacific and St. Mary's and those schools, they just can't compete. They're I guess what BYU plays in that WCC, and I can't, BYU. Who knows what they do these days? They're not
good. They're pretty good though.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't really have a real conference challenge, and I think that's what causes everybody to disrespect them, because they don't really get a challenge, and I really believe that's what hurts them when it comes to tournament time. Now, early on, I don't think that's a problem, but you get to the Sweet 16 where all of a sudden now you're getting back and you're getting to where you're starting to get into teams that give you parity. I think that's where they run into problems, because they're starting to see competition levels that they have not seen for literally months. And I think that's a problem.
I agree with what you said. You've got BYU, you've got St. Mary's, who's having a bit of a down year, but then you've got a bunch of also-rans, Portland, Pacific, just all these schools where they're favored by 25 to 31 points a night, which makes it very difficult. I know we're wrapping up on college basketball, but a great point there by Christine with a huge matchup. Since we're not on tomorrow, let's briefly touch on it. Number 4, Illinois against number 2, Michigan. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. Nobody's playing hotter basketball than the Wolverines, Vasu. I mean, I love this Dickinson kid. I love what Juwan Howard done selling this program. And the Wolverines, they've already got the number 1 projected recruiting class. So this is going to take me back to my junior high school days when they had the Fab 5 there, with Juwan on the court. But I think the Wolverines, if there's one team that's really made a move up the charts, it's them. Vegas has recognized that, by the way, my friend. They're now only 4.5 to 1. You could have got them 2 weeks ago at 12 or 15 to 1 to win the national championship. This is going to be a great, let's figure out the Big Ten matchup. And I know that you're excited about it as well, because Illinois is a quality program too.
All you got to do is watch the last few weeks and see Michigan. I mean, you don't even need to be a college basketball expert to see what Michigan's doing, dominating the Big Ten, not only in the conference, but also out of the conference as well too. So that'll be a good game. Is that game at Illinois tomorrow, or is it in Ann Arbor? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see who's favored, because remember, no Dewunsu for Illinois, and he's a lot of their offense. And I know that they just took out Wisconsin, but Wisconsin doesn't shoot the ball nearly.
Michigan.
And they don't shoot the ball nearly as well as Michigan does defensively. They're stopping everybody, even teams at full strength right now. So who knows? They may. And Baylor just moved down to the number 3 spot. Christine pointed out that Michigan is now number 2 as of the rankings coming up, because they were 3 all year, and now Baylor, with after the loss, moves down to number 3. Maybe if they should have gone down further, I don't know, but we'll see. They've had a lot of COVID issues, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. All right, Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O here. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for March 1st, 2021. Our new look, powered by Stables Media. You can catch us on Facebook pages and the Stables Media YouTube pages as well, too. So send us comments. Let us know what you like about it. Let us know what you don't like about it. And we'll take your comments and we'll read them on the air. We'll post them on the air as well, too. All right, let's move on to the NFL here real quick. Just the one story I want to talk about is obviously the big news that came up in the NFL. But for me, the NFL, yeah, it's still the NFL. It's the number one sport, blah, 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 this and that. But it's not. But it's still not bigger than everything else going on in sports right now as far as the game goes. But J.J. Watt, it didn't take him long, Charlie's favorite player, to find a home. The Arizona Cardinals signed him for a 2-year, $31 million contract, 23 of it guaranteed with Arizona. So here's the situation. I'm going to let, because I know Charlie's love of J.J. Watt, I'm going to let him go first on this. J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones on the outside. They've got their linebacker from Clemson in 2 years. I forgot his name. Casey probably knows that, the linebacker from Clemson, the first-round draft pick. That's how much football I'm listening. But in the NFC West, both the left tackle and right tackle struggling for the Rams. 49ers have to make a decision on left tackle, right tackle as far as Trent Williams, and I don't even know who their right tackle is going into the offseason. And then the Seattle Seahawks, we've all heard Russell Wilson complain about the lack of protection he's getting. And Kyler Murray was a big reason they didn't play well down the stretch. But he's got Hopkins. They've got a running back. They've got receivers. Obviously, 5 receivers they have in Arizona. What does this do for them from the defensive side, Charlie?
Well, it obviously helps them, but I think the statement is made here about what the league thought about J.J. Watt, and what they thought is he's not that great. Because
it only took 2 weeks, Charlie. It only took 2 weeks for him to find a job, though.
It took him 2 weeks. Okay, if you're great, it doesn't take you 2 weeks to find a job. Okay, and you know my belief. I believe in tiers. Okay, there are tier 1 teams, there are tier 2 teams, there are tier 3 teams, and then there's teams you don't want to play for. Okay, now obviously he came from a team that you don't want to play for. I understand that. Okay, although his big bravado and everything else, I won't go there because I've already been there. All right, but leaving there, you know what he wanted to do. He wanted to be with a Super Bowl contender. That's where he wanted to go. All right. Now, the first thought was, well, go play with the brothers in Pittsburgh. Well, obviously, Pittsburgh wasn't interested because he didn't wind up there. And that's because they didn't either offer him or they didn't give him a deal worthwhile. Now, there was some talk was that Cleveland might have been interested. Well, he didn't wind up in Cleveland. So that means that Cleveland didn't offer him enough money to go there. And Cleveland would have made sense because Cleveland is, I think, a legitimate contender. Where does he wind up? He winds up with a tier 2 team. And I mean that sincerely. He winds up with a tier 2 team in Arizona who doesn't have a prayer of going to the Super Bowl this year. They might have an outside chance of going to a conference championship in year 2. But guys, they're still away from a Super Bowl. So he's got a 2-year contract without a chance of going to a Super Bowl. The league just spit at him. Okay, J.J. Watt. Whoa! They don't think you're worth it. Okay? They don't think you're worth it. So with all your bravado and everything else, time has passed you by. They think you're an injury risk. Enjoy your money. Enjoy the sun. You better get some endorsement deals because a Super Bowl contender doesn't think you're worth it.
Well, they're not getting a lot of respect from Las Vegas. They are well down the big board. In fact, on the lower tier, 40-1 right now to win the Super Bowl next year. I think part of it, Vasu, I mean, that was fun analysis, Charlie. I appreciate what you said. When you're looking for a fit, I mean, whatever teams want you, he's going from a 3-4 to a 3-4, so that's going to help. The one thing is Corey Peters was lost to a knee injury last year, their nose tackle for Arizona. So if he's healthy, and then you've got Watt there at the kind of defensive end position, then you look at that, the 4 linebackers are going to be roving around there. Chandler Jones, of course, leading that unit, Charlie. They've got a good secondary with Drake Kirkpatrick and, of course, Budda Baker. So I think he'll help, but I'm not going to argue with you if you're going to tell me J.J. Watt's well past his prime. This is going to be season number 11. He hadn't really played that many full years over the course of the latter part of his career. And if you're going to give the guy $1 million a game, I don't know that he can necessarily be upset about that. Getting $31 million, $23 million of that guaranteed. And I think he just wanted out. Look, this franchise, as I mentioned, the Texans are a sinking ship. I am not enjoying what they're doing. And the bottom line is that they just are not good. And I hope for Deshaun Watson's sake, because I think if you and I and Vasu sat and had a beer and talked about, forget everything surrounding them. Let's just talk about arm strength, game manageability, and mentality. Deshaun Watson is elite. I mean, I think he's top 5 basically as far as the overall package. And if he could find his way out of there, he'll be in much better shape. Now, let's talk a little more about the Cardinals, because I talked about the defense there. They also need to take some steps with their offense. I feel like Kyler Murray regressed a little bit in the second half of the season. We've seen it time and time again with running quarterbacks. Once teams figure out how to adjust to your tendencies when you get out there and scramble, they find the advantage, and that's when your arm strength comes into play. People still call him undersized. I can't argue with that when I see some of the trees that he's having to throw behind. And I think that if you're Cliff Kingsbury, you've been lauded as the next McVay, the next it boy, if you will, it coach, as far as your scheming and strategy. They're going to have to do a little bit of overhauling of that offense. I'm not saying you go away from going to Hopkins, but you need to incorporate the run game more effectively. I'd like to see them use the tight end a little bit. I think the bottom line is your analysis is not out of the realm at all, because they've got a lot of work to do. Let's not forget, they will not be the favorite in that division. It goes Rams, Seahawks if Russell Wilson's there, then the Arizona Cardinals. And there's nobody that can argue about that, I don't think.
Yeah, Casey, I agree. And it's not that I don't like Kyler Murray. I think talent-wise, that kid's got tons of talent. And I agree with you. The thing that they've got to do is they've got to figure out how to build that offense around his skills. And the skills are going to be, you can't have him running all the time, because remember, his first sport was going to be baseball. And he's built like a baseball player. He's not built like a football player. Now, does that mean he can't play football? For heaven's sakes, no. What's the knock on Russell Wilson? He's too small. Well, I don't know, 7 years into it, Russell Wilson seems to be a guy that everybody loves, and I'd love to see Russell Wilson. My team's the 49ers. Would I love to see the 49ers get Russell Wilson? Right now, baby, I'll contribute. I'll put money in the hat. So, they can – Murray can be a really, really good quarterback. They just can't run him that much, because if they run him that much, they're going to break him down. So they've got to take that running effectiveness that they have with them. But like you said, I like that concept of, build that tight end in more for him. Work that short pass. Work that run, that run pass option. Take that speed, make that run threat work for you. But then, he's got a good arm. We know that he's got a good arm, and work those short passes, make that run threat work for you. And then you can put together, I think, a very, very effective offense that could get very scary.
And Vasu having some internet issues down there in Santa Clara County. If you're listening to the podcast, we didn't just cut him off. It's not just Charlie and I wanted to back and forth. But, so get Vasu's picks on the on his Facebook and his Instagram, and of course Charlie and I will make our picks in a moment. I think we should save baseball, because that's Vasu's number one passion. So we'll do a little baseball preview. Spring training's just getting underway. Well, he's popping back in. But Chuck, since we are getting ready to wrap up here, let's talk a little bit about Russell Wilson, who you just mentioned. 4 teams, Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and Bears, on his list as potential destinations. He's not demanding a trade. If I'm Russell Wilson, I'm demanding that this front office spends their first 2 draft picks getting me some damn help on the offensive line. Clearly, when the guy has blockers, he's fine. They've got an elite, I'm talking top of the NFL wide receiver core. They need to address the running game, and they need to address the front line. If they can do that, Russell Wilson will be happy, and the Seahawks will be right there with the Los Angeles Rams competing for the NFC West title. I think the bottom line is, even looking at some of the offshore odds, I don't think Big Russ is going anywhere. I think they just need to placate him by saying, yes, unlike the Texans' handling of Deshaun Watson, where we won't even listen to him, we here at the Seattle Seahawks understand that we've got one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the National Football League, and we're going to do everything that we have to, even if that means shuffling picks and trading up, to make sure that we've got blockers in there. Also, Charlie, or Vasu, you could take it as well, but what free agent offensive lineman wouldn't want to go play for Seattle, a winning organization with a good coach and a lot of talent on the skill positions. If you want to win, that's a franchise you're definitely considering, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead, Charlie. I'm sorry.
I agree. I mean, I don't think Russell Wilson's saying he wants to get traded. I think he's saying, get me help, because it's a good team. They're competitive, and they're they're just a couple of pieces away of being back in the Super Bowl. And so he's saying, get me the pieces. We're healthy. We've got the stuff. Get those pieces, and we're back playing on February, whatever the Sunday in February it is they're going to be playing. We're back there playing, and so that's what he wants. He doesn't want to freaking go to Vegas and be a Raider. No. Nobody wants to go to Vegas and be a Raider.
Nope.
Well, okay, somebody does, but you know what I'm saying. He's very happy being a Seahawk. And that's what he wants to do. And you're right. He's just saying, give me some players.
Well, Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O here. Sorry about that on the Wi-Fi here. For some reason, the Wi-Fi goes out for me whenever the least productive time to have that. So we'll just hit a couple more minutes here, just because I wanted to do it. We're going to preview the NL East right now. Those are the odds for the NL East to win the World Series: 1,000 for Atlanta, plus 7,000 for Miami, plus 950 for New York, plus 4,500 for Philadelphia and Washington. Now, we don't have a lot of time to go into it because of the internet situation here, but of those teams, Casey, what do you like from the off seasons that they've done? Because spring training has started, and we're exactly 1 month to the day of opening day, Casey.
Well, I think the NL East is going to require us to spend a good portion of a show when we have time, but my quick hit is that I'm befuddled by the odds and who they think is the best and this and that. Look, the Mets did a lot in the offseason. I think they're going to be better. They got Carlos Carrasco. They've got Francisco Lindor. They've got some power at the bats, but I don't see them as a clear-cut favorite against an Atlanta Braves team that was 1 game shy of going to the World Series. If I'm a Braves fan, my team has been disrespected. Breakout season with Ian Anderson. They clearly know how to manage their AAA system and bring up pitchers to where they don't have to go out and attract free agents. Another team not getting any respect is the Miami Marlins. This is the least respected division, it feels like, in Major League Baseball, considering that both the Braves and Marlins made the playoffs last year, and now the Mets are projected to get the victory. If I'm a betting man, which I am, I'm going to throw a few bucks back on the Braves because I don't see any reason why they have to slow down. They're young, they're talented, they've are good manager, they've got a great front office, and I feel like they are going to be playing with the proverbial chip on their shoulder, Charlie, and they should. Are the Mets just getting all this run because it's New York? Because I don't care if you live in New York. It doesn't mean that your franchise has been relevant for 20 years, because they haven't since the Subway Series. So I'm just not quite sure as to why all the hubbub and all the excitement is surrounding the Mets, considering we haven't seen this particular unit yet out on the field.
Yeah, Casey, I think that I think there's a lot of excitement because they finally got rid of a bad set of owners, and they've got an owner who cares now. And I think that's going to make a difference over the long haul. But one of the things that I think everybody's ignoring is that it's an organization that's in disarray. I mean, you got coaches that are gone. You've got a GM that, got thrown out the door. And I don't want to relitigate all of that. Okay. We know what they did. They made the right moves, and I applaud them for that. That's good. Okay. But when you get an organization that's new trying to come together, and then you have that kind of disruption, that's going to affect the team right there. And they also are it's a team that's got to come together, and you just don't pick pieces out with a baseball team and all of a sudden go plunk, and now we're ready to go. And I'm with you. Did everybody miss Atlanta last year? Did they miss this team? And that team's coming back for all intents and purposes intact. And I'm going, why not these guys? And I'm with you. I got you hold a gun to my head and make me go to the window right now. My money's going to Atlanta. No doubt.
You split those in half, and those are the NL odds to win the pennant. But Atlanta's signed Charlie Morton from Tampa Bay. The Marlins have they're slow in starters right now. I think the Mets, with their starting pitching, they got Carlos Carrasco and signed Taijuan Walker to the back end of the rotation. Gabe Peterson, the left-hander, there as well. 4,500 for the Phillies and the Washington Nationals. Philadelphia, it seems to me that they can pitch a little bit. They've got Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler too. All right, let's move on to the AL East here for a couple of minutes here. The AL East, there's the odds: 15,000 to win the World Series for the Baltimore Orioles, plus 6,000 for the Red Sox, plus 525 for the Yankees, plus 2,300 for Tampa Bay, but they were in the World Series last year, and Toronto plus 1,700. I don't know if you saw photos, Casey, of Vladimir Guerrero. He's the only one in COVID that lost any weight. He lost 42 pounds and looks unbelievable. And I think they're still going to play in Buffalo this year, so there's going to be a lot of offense. They got George Springer. They've got let's see what I've got here. They've got I had it somewhere. They've got pitching. They've got a little bit of pitching. They've got Hyun-Jin Ryu there, and they've got some things going on with them in terms of what they're doing. So I kind of look at them as kind of a challenger to the Yankees. I mean, after Garrett Cole, I'm really questioning the starting pitching. They got Jameson Taillon from the Pirates. They got a couple of guys there they could throw. Jordan Montgomery's never really been anything, but they've got the offense, and they re-signed LeMahieu. So what do you say, Casey, about the AL East right now? You still think it's the Yankees until somebody steps up?
Well, I mean, I don't on paper, but I always have to defer to what Las Vegas thinks, and they're right behind your Dodgers as the top pick to win the World Series. Obviously, you know what you get out of Garrett Cole. They've got other decent pitchers. I mean, didn't they get Corey Kluber now? Don't they have Kluber on that
Corey
team?
Kluber's on there too, yeah.
And that's a solid arm when healthy, although he's really had some issues with health over the last few years. I think Toronto's the most intriguing team. You talked about it there. I mean, how often does Toronto get the biggest free agent name in George Springer? I can't believe they got George Springer. The problem they're going to run into is they're a team without a home. It's kind of what's plaguing the Raptors as they sit down there in Tampa. I don't think that Toronto necessarily wants to play in a AAA stadium, no matter what a great job Buffalo did last year. That affects you. You'd like to have a home that you can go home to that's actually your home where you live. And a lot of those guys, I would imagine, at least have a second home up there in Toronto, Ontario. But all in all, I think it's going to be a fun year in the AL East. The Yankees, I think, are the favorite. I don't love the Rays letting Charlie Morton go. I understand why they did it. They're the Oakland A's East. They'll use you as long as they can, and you're serviceable for them. And then they'll let you go when you demand the big bucks. But all in all, I think the Yankees are probably rightly seated as the favorite there. And the funny thing is, guys, how many years now has it been since the Red Sox won the World Series? Not that many. And we don't even talk about them, Chuck, because they're just not relevant, it seems like.
Yeah, it's really funny that the Red Sox are kind of back to being the Red Sox. I mean, they really are. Will Cora make a difference being back there? I don't think so this season. I don't really know that much about their minor league system, to be honest with you, at this point. So I don't know that it'll make any difference. The only thing with Tampa Bay at this point that could be a surprise is I do know they have a good minor league system, so they could surprise us with some pitching coming out of that, because your analogy with the A's is a good one. They could have some surprises for us coming out of there pitching wise. And of course, we know they're going to pitch by committee, so there's always some surprises that could come up there. But I'm with you. If the boys in the desert like the Yankees that much, I've got to go, wow, I got to pay more attention to the Yankees. And of course, we know offense wise that they're going to be awesome. And as long as that kid that's in right field is there, you got to pay attention. I mean,
Vasu, that Yankees plus 525 has got to be the best preseason number you've gotten out of them in a long time. I mean, right now, looking at that, you're making me again want to get in my car after work and drive up there. If I can get 5-1 back on the money, and all they have to do is win the division, I don't think that there's another team that you can make a strong argument that over the course of 162 games it is going to win the division. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about World Series or advancing in the playoffs, but that seems, I'm not going to call it a gift, but
these are the World Series odds, Casey. These are the World Series odds. I'm sorry. We're previewing the divisions. Everything that we did is all preseason World Series odds right here.
Well,
split it in half and split it in quarters.
I thought you had AL East odds there. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that is really high.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just sent everybody into a tailspin. All right. So we'll preview the Central on Wednesday, and we'll have a full baseball preview as we get closer to April 1st. But I kind of want to remind everybody the spring training is going on. There's a lot of things going on. Whatever the home run record is in Major League Baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to surpass it in that little tiny stadium in Buffalo. Go ahead, Charlie.
Casey, Brovada has the Yankees minus 165 to win the East. So, sorry.
My hopes and dreams have already been burned to shit. Hey, if I have $1,650 burning a hole in my pocket, I will take an easy grand. How about that?
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, let's close out the show with picks here. I'm going to start out with Casey. Go ahead, Casey, as we put them up on the board here for you. You got them there. Tell us why you like the Trailblazers in Oklahoma State.
Well, the Blazers are going to be in better shape, even though I know they haven't played that well of late. But Damian Lillard will just carry this game, and I think the Hornets kind of. I don't want to, this is a PG rated show, but they shot something last night as they beat the Kings. I took every ounce of energy that they had. Gordon Hayward is out again tonight, or doubtful at least with the hand. And I think that Damian Lillard by himself is going to be the difference maker here, especially because Charlotte's been on the West Coast for a little while right now. And I just feel like their legs might get to him in the second half. And I did love it a lot more at -6 than I do at -7. But for the purposes of this program, I can't help what time we air. So I guess I'll have to take the 7 points with Portland at home. I think they're going to win that game in a blowout, somewhere around the neighborhood of 12 to 14 points, in my opinion. Oklahoma State, this is going against the way that I normally play. Typically on the back-to-back of these 2-game swings with any college, whether they're a brand name school or not, I have gone against the team that won the first game. I don't see that tonight. It's going to be chippy, it's going to be angry, and it's going to come back down to player performance. Cade Cunningham is going to continue to put up massive numbers like this, 30s, 40s perhaps, as Oklahoma State makes a push for the tournament. I think them and Kansas are the two teams that are the hottest and the two teams to watch in the Big 12, and I expect the Cowboys to get a win. This will be a nail-biter. Believe me, you'll have the nubs nibbled down. This is not going to be an easy game by any means, but I think the Cowboys getting 2 in this contest is the right play. Even if they don't win, I could see it be a 1-point game at the buzzer. And look, I'm coming in hot. I know I wasn't with you guys on Friday, so I didn't have a chance to pick over the weekend. But my 5-0 last week, let's see if we can't keep it going, baby. We're all here together to beat the book with you folks listening and watching at home. So let's hop on and let's have some fun.
All right, Charlie, go ahead. I just have the one pick here from you that was posted. So it was there it is. It was there.
There it is.
Yeah,
there
you
go. Okay.
Dallas -3.5 in the first half tonight at Orlando.
Yeah, I'm going with the Freelove method tonight. So I just I looked at everything and I wasn't real thrilled with a lot of stuff, but I kind of like this one. So I'm going to go. Dallas is playing Orlando in Orlando, and I kind of like this one. I'm going to take Dallas -3.5 in the first half. So we're going to go that one. The Mavericks, the one thing that I was impressed with the other night when I watched the Mavericks play is Porzingis looked pretty good again for the first time, and so I like seeing him come back. It's going to be interesting to me. I know I'm going a little bit of a ride here, but it's going to be interesting to me to see what Dallas decides to do with him. Because, of course, what are they going to say in the front office in Dallas? Yeah, we're going to trade him. No, of course they're not going to say that. But, there's been a lot of rumors out there that he's going to be on the move, except I watched them play with him the other night, and I'm going, why would you move him? Now, I know health has always been a bit of concern with him, but they play really well with him in the lineup. And I just don't understand why you'd want to move him. But anyway, I'm going Dallas -3.5 first half.
All right. So for my picks tonight, I'm going to go with the Charlotte Hornets again. I just like the way they score the ball, and Portland hasn't played any defense. So I got them at 7.5, so I'm going to take them at 7.5. A lot of NBA tonight. Denver, Chicago, over 225.5. Chicago on fire, scoring the ball. Denver, I don't know what to make of Denver. I don't know if Denver can cover the game. I don't think they will cover the game, but I'm going to go with the over 225.5 there. Dallas, Orlando, over 221. The way that Dallas scores the points, I know Orlando doesn't score a lot, but I just got a feeling that Dallas is going to put up 125 tonight on Orlando, and they'll go over the 221. I'm going to go with Brooklyn at San Antonio. I'm going to take them -4.5. And then the three college plays I've got UNC Syracuse over 151. Oklahoma State, Casey and I are lock and step with that. +2.5 for me on Oklahoma State. I think they'll sweep the series. And then Oregon and Arizona playing a makeup game. Oregon had the COVID issues earlier in the Pac-12. You know how much I love the Pac-12. I'm going to go under 139.5 for that game as well, too. That game at 9 o'clock, along with the Oklahoma State-Oklahoma game as well. The UNC Syracuse at 7. And then all the NBA is between 7 and 10 o'clock Eastern time there. All right, we ran a little bit long, brand new setup here, so kind of working the kinks out. We hope you enjoyed it. Make the Money and Run podcast for March 1st, 2021, powered by Stables Media, sponsored by Viget. Download the Viget app and use the MTMR promo code and get on the betting leagues and get all your bets in there and compare your action with ours as well, too. We'll be back Thursday at 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, right here on Facebook Live. You can check it out on my Facebook page Stables Media Facebook page, as well as Stables Media YouTube page as well, too. So for Charlie O, Casey Freelove, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great afternoon. As always, good luck with your games, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.